Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. If you're looking for your daily dose of DigiByte, well, you've come to the right place. Back on the channel, my buddy Josiah. He's an important figure in the DigiByte world, you might say, and I'm happy to have him back on the channel. How's it going, man?
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here. Appreciate you having me back on to have a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for folks that might not know, you can give a little bit of background about your story, how you got into the space, and then what you do for DigiByte.
Sure. So I originally myself got involved back in 2014, end of 2013, basically. Like most people, I heard of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Back then, though, a friend of mine basically said that I could print money with my graphics card, and I thought, this sounds
cool.
This sounds great.
Yeah.
So I got involved. I got myself a couple of graphics cards. I started mining Bitcoin, but this was right when the first ASIC started to show up. So very quickly it became, I think I managed to mine 0.1 of a Bitcoin after 3 days or something like that, which was like $2 at the time. So
yeah, that's when you mentally abandoned it because you're like, okay, it's cool, but I'm over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
You do the math and you're like, oh, I've spent like $10 worth of electricity to get $2 worth. Like the math doesn't check out. So yeah, I found Litecoin shortly thereafter. I thought I'm a clever guy and I can see that they've got a higher maximum supply and they've got faster block times and I can mine it potentially at the same time as, well, that was the original idea, potentially at the same time as Bitcoin. But I thought, you know what, it makes more sense to use this as like as a currency. Cool, I'm in. And about a week or two after I'd found Litecoin, I actually came across DigiByte because they were doing their Mine for Mud with Dogecoin.
Yeah.
And it was a philanthropic event where they were helping victims of the Washington mudslides. So I looked into it and they just implemented DigiShield. And I thought, I'm a clever guy. This has a bigger maximum supply and faster block timings. I'm apparently also a very simple man. So but that was it. That was the start of my journey. I had to take a bit of a sabbatical, a bit of a break from any cryptocurrencies for a couple of years due to just life circumstances. But here we are today. I kind of basically woke up one morning a little while ago and decided I wanted to help and I wanted to be somebody that could help educate people and teach people and show them just how cool this stuff really is. Like, and this is exciting. These are really interesting times that we're in. And I want to be able to help people. I want people to be able to learn cool stuff. I want to help them with tech problems, all that kind of thing. So here we are today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And DigiByte is one of those projects that I think flies under the radar quite a bit because it doesn't have flashy marketing. It doesn't have the, a lot of the buzzwords that you hear out there. But what it does do really well is the fundamental benefits of a cryptocurrency and a lot of the fundamental things that Bitcoin is so great because of. DigiByte has really doubled down on. And I think that's why I'm such a fan of it, because a lot of the, I guess, niche things that you see with proof of stake and a bunch of other things, they're cool, but there's also something to be said for going back to the basics and just improving the basics even.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point in terms of like doubling down on it. And that's potentially one of the better ways of, I suppose, describing DigiByte. We've doubled down on what's cool, but we've also looked forward a bit more, even things like with the 1,000-to-1 supply ratio. So that's probably one of the better ways I've actually heard of explaining it. And don't get me wrong, like I'm a big fan of the idea of trying things.
Yeah, totally.
But at the same time, I'm not convinced like everything needs a blockchain. But at the same time, I want to see Bitcoin with their 1 mega. Like, you know what? Let's go for a 300 kilobyte block. I would love to see that. I think that would be, and then we've got the polar opposite, which is BSV and their like gigameg blocks, whatever,
Yeah. It's like, let's just put 100 gigabyte solid state drives per block.
Every single block you get a new solid
man.
State drive, you just chuck it in there and it doesn't matter. You've only got, 6 SATA ports and 2 M.2 slots.
Yeah, minor detail. Yeah, and I mean, the other cool thing about DigiByte is how decoupled it really is from a parent organization or a figurehead person. I know that the community is very avid, but it very much is a community-run project. Yeah. And there's no one single person who can just say, this needs to happen, and then it happens. And I think that that's something that's underrated.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a balancing act, and it's something that we kind of have to consistently fight for is the wrong word. Strive for is probably a better way of describing it. But it's something we've got to consistently strive for as a broader, you know, ecosystem. It's really quite it's great that we've got Jared, who is still involved in the development and things like that. But at the same time, it's very different from, say, for example, Ethereum. A lot of people are familiar with Ethereum. Vitalik, he's very much like a driving force. You see him in there all the time. Arguably still very heavily involved in every single decision and pathway and things like that. Whereas with DigiByte, so for example, the AutoCrypt upgrade that we did last year, so although Jared was aware of it and everything along those lines, he wasn't actually involved with it until the day that we actually went live. That was the day when he first actually installed that software himself. He was a real late bloomer there in terms of getting the update.
Trying it out.
And we did everything, all of like the network testing, the protocol level stuff, and all of the juicy things that go along with it. You know, without his involvement. So he did actually, to be fair, contribute to some of the core wallet coding that kind of went into it beforehand. But you get kind of the picture. There's the very distinct difference there between the two. So he's still very actively involved.
But it doesn't all originate from there, right? It's not, and all of the, like, there are a lot of decisions that are made when you make an update to a protocol, or you make an update at the protocol level. And there are a lot of, I mean, it's high stakes, right? You know, someone like Jared,
there's hundreds of millions of dollars at play here. Like, you don't want to mess that up and go,
sorry guys. Sorry.
MIT license.
We'll just wind that back. You know, I mean, and it doesn't even, it just doesn't work that way, because once you make a mistake, it's an immutable mistake in a lot of ways. And
so there is a lot of testing and things that goes into it. Don't get me wrong. So especially with us coming up with ProgPow, a lot of testing is going to be going into that. Everything from testing the way that the algorithm is implemented through to doing testnet upgrades of the entire blockchain and things like that, simulating different levels of hash rates that we could potentially expect, all of that kind of juicy goodness. And it's potentially going to take, you know, a few months.
These things take time, especially things that are very intricate, like consensus algorithms. They're very challenging to tune so that all the different levers work out the way they should for users and for the protocol and for miners. Everyone's got to be, you know, balanced. So I guess it would be fair to say that, you know, you talked about AutoCrypt, which for folks who are as of yet uninitiated, it's basically in essence a morphing consensus mechanism that's focused on crippling ASIC domination. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, every 10 days it morphs itself and tweaks itself and
so it's more parameterized. So you have to kind of keep up with the algorithm rather than you just plug in an ASIC and just keep running on the same specialized single algorithm.
Correct. So every 10 days you need to update and reapply the bit streams to your FPGA. So think of it kind of like, for those who are uninitiated, you've got your CPU, which is kind of like your most common level of mining. Then above that, you've got your GPU. And then above that, you have an FPGA. And then above that, you have an ASIC. So the FPGA kind of sits in between an ASIC and a GPU and is kind of like a programmable ASIC that you could use to chop and change between a couple of different algorithms.
Super malleable, allows you to make changes on the fly. So I mean, that's what it stands for: field programmable gate array. So, you know, you can program it in the field and change how it works. And then you said, you know, Prog POW is in the mix. So clearly the focus still is focusing on making mining a more equitable, open exchange of value and creation of value, and making sure that there's no single piece of tech that can dominate, you know, because Prog POW is kind of ASIC focused as well.
Yeah, so their target hardware is very much GPU focused. So they've optimized a whole lot in terms of what we've got with both your NVIDIA camp and your AMD camp. And if Intel ever make a GPU that's not like you're, you know, on board, then we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, who knows?
It might happen. We don't know. Dreams are free. But so what they've done is they've kind of taken a slightly different approach. So with AutoCrypt, we took FPGAs and we basically compared them against ASICs. And we said, what are the differences here? How close to an ASIC can we get this FPGA algorithm without actually making it ASIC mineable?
Yep.
Just dial it back a little bit, make these tweaks and things so that it does change itself on a regular basis so that you can't mine it on an ASIC. And we've got AutoCrypt, something that is FPGA targeted. With ProgPow, and now for all those mining, non-mining people, sorry, this is going to be very interesting to you in just a moment here. Don't worry.
Stick with us.
Yeah, stick with us. It's all right. We're getting there. They've focused on GPUs and they've targeted a GPU. So originally what happened with at Hash, which Ethereum uses, is they started from an algorithm focus and they focus specifically on the algorithm. It's a slightly different approach from ProgPow, which is more of let's focus on the hardware that we have, that we know that we've got, and we're going to just ramp up the utilization as much as we can and streamline it and optimize it for the hardware rather than focusing on the algorithm as the target. Slightly different, but it's got a very subtle change in outcome in that ProgPow is very tweakable for GPUs and things like that. Future optimizations in terms of new hardware that comes out, anything along those lines. Very easy to modify it so that it would invalidate any potential ASIC that might come along. But at this stage, we're looking at it basically going, it doesn't look like it's going to be possible. And we've even seen, I think there's 3 different independent groups have gone through and investigated and reviewed the algorithm and have all gone, yeah, that looks cool. That looks like a great GPU mining algorithm. And there are like 1 or 2 minor little tweaks and improvements you can make, but yeah, it looks good. Same also for RandomX. And now this is where it gets really exciting for the average Joe because you don't need a specialized GPU.
Yeah.
You've got your computer. If you've got an old one, sure, you might not make millions of dollars of cryptocurrency overnight with it, but you've got a CPU in your desktop computer, in your laptop, potentially even in your cell phone that you can use.
Yeah.
So that means you plug your cell phone in at night, you leave your laptop plugged in at night, and it can mine on your existing hardware. You don't have to go and purchase anything. We've removed that barrier to entry, and we are further broadening the scope of people who can participate in this kind of thing, further enhancing the global distribution of the base layer cryptocurrency, DigiByte. So huge benefits all around in terms of both the security and the distribution, which I feel doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that the more access at the lowest possible echelon of technology and hardware requirements, the more likely it is that the network becomes more decentralized in the truest sense, because there are more people who can participate at the most core tenet of the network or process of the network, which is mining and consensus and owning a copy of the network, right?
Yeah.
So all these algorithms giving people an opportunity to, regardless of what sort of investment they have to make in participating, they can do so.
Yeah. And that's really quite important as well. One of the things that we've seen is I've done previous comparisons of DigiByte with its 5 algorithms up against Bitcoin or Litecoin with their 1 algorithm.
Yep.
And you see the distribution and like that pie, it's actually a donut graph that I was making, even just updating earlier in the week, was immensely different. So
yeah,
it's good for the security. It's good for the distribution of the coin as well. And it makes for a better blockchain project, really, in every way. So it's exciting.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, besides consensus, do you have any, interesting news to share? Like, is there anything, like, where is DigiByte going from here? If we had a roadmap in front of us, what are some of the things that are on the horizon?
It's funny you actually mentioned that, because let me quickly bring this up. I've actually put something up on GitHub. Now, I'm not calling it a roadmap, because a roadmap implies, like, you hear people all the time, we've got a team of developers and we're working and we beat them with a stick every day to make sure that
they're not getting
output
paid
a certain number of lines of code. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But so instead, this is what we're calling a pipeline. These are things that are coming in the future, things that either members of the community are interested in seeing, or perhaps something that developers have indicated that they are interested to work on down the line or are currently working on. So Digi Assets for iOS is obviously the first one.
Great. Yeah.
Which is
long awaited.
Overdue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we miss it. We've actually got a new gentleman who's looking after that now for us. He's finishing off a lot of the work that our existing developer has done, which we're super stoked about. But the existing developer wants to get his teeth dirty on some more core level stuff.
Cool.
So we've got somebody who's kind of picking up the mantle and running with it, which is cool. But so in terms of our like more bigger projects that we've got coming up, we'll just really quickly list them off. So we're looking at Schnorr signatures. Cool. We're looking at ProgPow, RandomX, potentially integrating Lightning Network. There are further improvements that we're doing with the Go wallet, further tweaks to Digi Assets, the opcodes and things that we're doing there. And I'll kind of stop there because otherwise we've got a massive long list. It's hard to remember what we started with.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of good stuff. And I think it's, again, it harkens back to the original point, which is that DigiByte is doubling down on a lot of the things that make Bitcoin great and, you know, taking a creative approach to doing so. Obviously, because, you know, Bitcoin is what it is, and it's a much different culture. And that's it's not a cut on Bitcoin either. I think people sometimes take it that way. But DigiByte is a place, in my opinion, where research and development projects and ideas that would never fly in the core protocol can get battle tested there. And then if they provably work within DigiByte, I think that's just like almost mental like thoughtware to show, okay, in Bitcoin core, this could work just as well and maintain decentralization, maintain what's good about Bitcoin. So it's almost like a battleground to allow a freer decentralized community in this regard, this specific regard, to test new things out.
Yeah. And addressing a lot of those shortcomings doesn't have to be, it's like, let's be honest, it's probably going to be contentious if it's Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone has their own opinion about what should and should not be, you know, and you might have an opinion on this, but I definitely do. I don't think we're going to see, unless there's some sort of like 0-day style thing going on, a hard fork in Bitcoin core, at least in any time within the near future. Like we're talking decades, because that's how hard fought these things are. But that doesn't mean we can't have soft forks and things like Schnorr signatures, which will no doubt improve things. Don't have to be hard forks. They can be soft forks and no interruption. So those things should happen.
So for example, when we're looking at Schnorr signatures for ourselves, we're probably going to be looking at putting in at the same time as we do a protocol level upgrade. So DigiByte has done a number of hard forks in the past. These are not your traditional kind of Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin forks where everything splits off, but more so that your viewers are aware this is more of kind of like a reorientation of the ship. We're all on the boat. We're all just kind of changing course a little bit because we all basically agree this is the best way forward. Is probably a better way of putting it. But when it comes to Schnorr signatures, we'll kind of look at trying to bring those in potentially at one of those reorientations. So everybody gets it, just like we did with Dandelion. So Dandelion is an optional level thing in Bitcoin Core. The problem is if you've only got like 1 or 2 people that are running it, it doesn't really do a lot.
It doesn't work,
So with Dandelion, for your IP preserving privacy measures, it needs most people out there to be using it. We've got a lot of people that are running nodes who are both mining pools, we've got exchanges, we've got blockchain explorers, all of that kind of juicy goodness, and they all have it turned on by default, which is great. So sure, some of them are going to go and intentionally turn it off. Totally cool, no worries. But the majority of the network supports it, which means that when you now take your handy dandy cell phone and you fire it up, it works. So we're pretty stoked about that kind of thing. Same sort of thing with Schnorr signatures, and potentially even they're looking into what's involved in a core level coin join and coin shuffle. So
interesting.
We'll see.
Yeah, from a technical perspective, that one's challenging. And also like just from buy-in. I think some people with the ideas of coin joins and mixers and other things, the regulatory uncertainty there, I think makes people super scared of taking that type of step.
Yes.
Lest you draw regulatory scrutiny that is otherwise undue, and I don't think it's like everyone who does it is bad. It's more of how is it going to be perceived? And if someone makes a law, how do you wind it back?
And this is a lot of the thing as well. So it's not just with these, like, let's say coin joins, but also when we look at staking as well.
Yeah.
And there is still uncertainty about would the United States, for example, classify that as a security?
True. Yeah. No, I totally agree because, stake, however you evaluate it, is it stake in something? Is it stake in an organization? Is it stake in a project? The questions are valid, and there are arguments in both directions that make sense. It's just, will we have clarity? Not anytime soon, and
Probably
it will likely
and
it will likely happen where clarity comes out of someone getting hit with a really big stick, and that's the problem at hand here. And so people hate on me a ton for saying I'm all for quicker regulations. I'm not saying haphazard slap together stuff, but if we work with regulators in some cases, clarity is better than non-clarity. Regulation is going to come no matter what. So let's figure out how we can regulate properly in a way that doesn't completely, stifle innovation, but also that projects are no longer spending so much money and time on the regulatory. Like, I think if you look at projects like EOS and the whole, backing company behind it in Block One, the amount of time and money that they spent, even before the SEC situation, on regulatory and legal matters is insane. So people say, well, where did all that ICO money go? I can tell you, I'm sure a lot of that money went to lawyers and accountants and regulatory, like lobbyists and other things like that, because there is no clarity. And if you're going to start touching enterprise, you're going to start touching, real people's money.
Wouldn't it be better if you could take that lawyer money and either send it towards like developers,
R&D, man? Yeah. And if there's
almost anything is, I'm sorry to all the lawyers out there, don't get me wrong.
You just hate to spend money on a lawyer, right?
It's a necessary, I don't want to say necessary evil, because again,
you can't win this one, man. You can't win
I'm sorry. Oh no. Yeah, but that's true, right? So we've done likewise. And we went and we got an independent legal opinion in the United States. Company were willing to stake their name on it and basically go, yep, we don't believe that you are a security. Here is why. And you can take this and show it to exchanges if you'd like. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So some people in the community actually paid for a formal legal opinion that basically said, you are not a security as far as we're concerned. We might still be one day, but the chances, like you mentioned, of being hit with that stick and being that target are a lot slimmer.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a provable defense, and that's where the clarity thing comes into play, because if you're a project and we know, even if you disagree with it, because regulations happen, people disagree with them, they may be unfair, but as long as you know what those bounds are, innovators will find a way around to make the things work the way they should be, even with those guardrails around you. And so I would trust people more. People are more likely to innovate around regulations that are a little bit opaque or dense than there will be people who are just scared to even try because there's no clarity. And I know this is a contentious topic, but the reality is I think we all want the same thing, and that's for this space to actually do good and develop quickly and to get in the hands of more people. And I think this is a component that has to be thought about, and everyone has to sort of take an active role in, whether they agree with me and agree with you or disagree with us or whatever.
Well, people, I guess that's kind of one of the beauties of cryptocurrencies. People don't actually have to do diddly squat if they don't want to.
True, yeah, you don't have to.
And we get a lot of people, and they'll join our Telegram channels, for example, and they'll go, all right, guys, what's happening? What are you going to do today to help further DigiByte?
Yeah.
And obviously we greeted it with, you're most welcome to help us. We're looking at, we're talking with this exchange. We're over here working on this particular project. We're busy building this documentation. And they're like, I don't think I will.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Okay. That's all right.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for asking though.
but yeah, like that's kind of the beauty of a permissionless project. But like you say, to further that,
yeah,
we've got a few people, like for example, Rudy, who has been a big proponent and he's heavily involved alongside AntomID in the COVID-19 alert app, which the Dutch government is currently going through and reviewing. And as far as I'm aware, they're in like a kind of a finalist stage at the moment.
Yeah.
They've been using, they're looking at ways that DigiByte can be used within the application as well.
Yeah.
And AntomID, who are heavily involved with it, are built basically their entire product suite on top of the DigiByte blockchain and DigiID. So, you know, that's really exciting. And we kind of, we look at this as an opportunity. Like what's actually the current population of the Netherlands?
Good question. That one I would have no idea.
17 million people. And so they basically look at it and they go, well, we're going to need maybe 60% of people out there using this kind of an application.
Yeah.
And you look at it and we go, right, even if this is, let's say 50%, just for a nice round number of 17 million. So 8.5 million people using this application, even if they themselves do not know it's DigiByte underneath, and how it's being used and all of the intricacies about why it's being used and what it's doing, getting that kind of thing out there and into the hands of people, I think is actually a really both a noble but also a really exciting prospect.
Yeah, totally. And look, if you did your job as a developer of a service that's based on blockchain or not, the user should not feel or have to worry about how it works behind the scenes. Because if they do, then you haven't abstracted it enough to the point where it's a good user experience.
Yeah.
The rest comes later. If they say, well, wow, like this really did a great job doing X, Y, Z, then you can say, well, you know, guess what? This is the backbone. Yeah. This is how it works. Ta-da. And woo, you know, and I think that's the key. That's the key to a lot of this stuff is getting easy to use stuff in people's hands that makes their lives better. And then saying, hey, you know what enabled this to work the way that it does? You know, blockchain, crypto, all these other, you know, there are tons of other technologies that I think have a lot of the propensity to make people's lives a lot better, but need to develop, you know, further.
This was something that I think you actually mentioned in our first video that we did together, was you were talking about building an application on Ethereum and what's involved with that and what the end user should have for an expectation, what happens in terms of, like, say, for example, delays or the costs involved and all of that kind of thing. And as a developer, it's interesting weighing that all up. I mean, I'm not a developer. I'm more saying, like, as you are a developer, weighing that all up. But as an end user, most of the time, what an end user just wants, pretty little button that they can click on. And what happens behind the scenes usually doesn't matter quite so much. So yeah, like you mentioned, being able to say to them, hey, you know, I'm glad you enjoy that. Sweet. I've worked really hard on this. I'm really proud of this. Did you know that it's blockchain? And they'll go, oh, wow, that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
I like that.
Totally. Yeah. And, you know, if you look at the way stuff is sold, you know, I hate to liken this to, like, you know, salesmen, but the reality is that's the way the world works. They don't lead with, here's this half-assed thing, but it's gonna be great. They lead with, how is this gonna change your life and make it better?
Yes.
And now here's the product, here's how you get it. And then once people like it, here's how it works and here's why it works and all that sort of thing.
So what you're saying, though, is what we need to do with the likes of RandomX and things is we need to say to people, we're making some changes so that everybody can participate in mining, securing the network, and being rewarded with DigiByte for doing so.
Precisely. Yeah.
The how matters a bit less than the what.
And there will be a significant number of people who really care how it works. And those are people who, you know,
they'll ask the question, though.
Yeah, they come and ask you, and they come and watch, you know, they seek those answers out.
Yeah.
But the average person who is who's passive in this industry, they want the bottom line. What does this do to make my life or people around me's, I guess that's the way it is, their lives better, right? And then after that, really they might come into it, say, I want to know how it works. Maybe.
Tell them then afterwards.
Yeah. And then, I mean, because I mean, for me personally, I want to know what something's all about. Like if I'm going to buy something, the first thing I look at is like, does this thing do what it's supposed to do well?
Yes.
And like, how does it impact my life? And then afterwards, once I like it, I'm like, okay, now I want to know every single thing about how this works.
Yep.
So it's like you look, right? So you look at a Tesla, like, okay, this is a cool car. It's fast. It has, some cool technology in it. That's the first place you go. It's like, how cool, how does it look? What is it? How much does it cost and all that thing. Then you start watching these teardown videos where you're like, I want to know what the battery cell density is. And I want to know all this stuff.
And their what do you call it? The production line and things.
Yeah, how it's automated. Yep. That all comes secondary to what the product is, what it means, and why it matters.
This is actually really interesting because this is potentially something as well. So you've mentioned at the very start of this video how the marketing is being community driven and things, and it is something that has been being worked on to grow. Mm-hmm. What I think as a project, not just specifically DigiByte, but specifically DigiByte, but as an entire crypto space, we've kind of gone more like down the specifics route. So my wife and I were looking at getting an electric scooter for her. And she was like, I want the Xiaomi one. And they've got two options. They've got the Pro model and they've got the regular model.
Yeah.
And, can I get to work and back on the regular model? Yes. Cool. I'm getting the regular model. Then I don't need to spend the extra money. Yeah. Whereas I was more interested in how does it work? What's the maximum speed? What's the actual range of them? All of that, what are we getting for that additional money kind of thing? And I think that's what these projects as a whole, DigiByte included, but not just limited to DigiByte, have gone, here's a marketing sheet.
Yeah,
you can get all of this stuff. When my wife just wants to know, can I get to work and back on that scooter?
That's what's important to her, for her decision to use it.
That's what's important to a lot of people. And so I wonder if this is kind of coming as a bit of like a realization moment for me here, that there's a lot more that we can be doing to reach more people. Like I mentioned at the start here, this is something that I'm interested in education, specifically around the technicals and things like that. It's what really gets me going. And the how the production line works at the Tesla factory. I love it.
Yep.
But if we can teach more people that Tesla is an electric car, and that you're better for the environment for reasons or whatever. And sure, people can debate the whole, what goes into the battery creation and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But whatever. In terms of the actual DigiByte blockchain, if we can basically come to them and say, we're going to be doing some upgrades to the network so that you can participate in mining, is potentially better than saying, hey, we're going to be replacing an ASIC specific algorithm with a GPU or CPU focused one.
Yeah.
Same outcome.
Yeah, same exact topic.
Exactly, but 90% of people are going to go, oh, I can mine on my computer now with one click.
Cool, yeah.
Cool, thanks. And those who are interested can go, how does it work?
Yeah, totally.
So this has been interesting. It's
cool, man. Hey, you never know what'll come out of these what'll come out of these chats. It can be real-time development of new strategies and things to better the space. But Josiah, I think that's just about as good of a place to stop as I can think of. Possibly is.
This has been great, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for joining, and folks who are watching, please do check out DigiByte. If you're just coming to this video, like, what is DigiByte? There's a ton of content online. I've made some videos. Josiah's made a ton of videos. I'll link his channel up as well down below, so you can check that out. But Josiah, before we sign off, where can people find you online and interact with you if they have questions?
If you want to find out more about DigiByte, I run a podcast as well, which Forrest is featured on, digibyteandfriends.com. You can go and check that out. It'll take you through to the YouTube channel. I do videos every other day, keeping people up to date with the news and things like that, what's going on, cool stuff happening.
Awesome.
Yeah, the occasional live stream like this. Or you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm at DGB_chilling. Happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely, guys. And of course, have a fantastic rest of your day, night, evening, day, whatever, wherever you are, enjoy it and have a good one. Cheers.
Thanks, man. Cheers.